All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone here. I hope you guys are feeling the heat, literally, right? The skies are really looking gloomy out there, but you guys are in the coldest part of the entire conference hall, right? So, a very warm welcome to the 12th APAC Summit. And this is 2 years since we've been back at the National Gallery. So I hope you guys would prefer this over your typical hotel ballrooms, especially even across the field to Marina Bay Sands, right? So, okay, let me go back. Okay, showing my ugly face here, right? A quick introduction. My name is Wayne. I lead the Plug and Play team in Singapore, and I also look after our investments in the APAC region. I think some of you guys might not have known me because I have technically retired from my hosting and emceeing position since a few years back. But the team was like, hey, you guys, you need to get your lazy ass up there. So I'm back here doing some work, right? Just to share, I think a bit of the wins nowadays, right? The world today, we've been hearing a lot of funding winter, or even worse, unicorn graveyard. This is what you guys have heard probably over the last 18 to 24 months. But investors like us, we tend to call it an opportunistic time, because we like to really find the diamonds in the rough, or maybe the needle in a haystack, right? It's a bit negative, but there is a lot of money going still into this space, right? So investors nowadays are really not chasing any sort of growth at all costs. We are looking really at efficiency, all right? If you're actually solving a real problem, and maybe if you follow compliance and audits as well, tracking your finances and not overinflating those as well. But really, there's a lot of money going into spaces like AI, right? If you look at the APAC Summit happening in Korea this week, you have your Malaysia's hosting ASEAN summits. A lot of conversations is around how AI is driving global growth, especially for economic growth. So stop complaining about why AI cannot help you create your next presentation deck. Right? And then I think some startups were asking me, can AI help me justify my valuation, right, for investors? But anyways, we have about 60 plus startups in our APAC Summit this year. So we are truly like the United Nations, right? We have startups from Korea, Japan, Italy, Cambodia, and I think quite a few others. And then we have also guests from many other countries as well, including like Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, even Bhutan as well. So we really welcome you guys to join us today and listen to all the interesting, insightful content, as well as startup pitches. Right. So in the morning, we're basically listening to about 5 interesting speeches and panels. And before that, we also have some interesting updates from our team. So please stay tuned for that. And then in the afternoon, most of the startups will be pitching up here. So a bit of housekeeping, because this is where I earn my keeps. Basically, if you guys are here for networking, you guys would have been issued passes. And on the passes, you have colored labels. So, for example, if you're from the corporate or the government, it's blue color. If you're from the red color one, you're the startups, right? So the startups will be looking after and running after blue colored and green colored labels. So please don't run away or hide your badges, right? So if you need any help, we have the Plug and Play team in purple, okay? And this is the layout. I don't think I'm supposed to do like fire safety announcements, but if you guys are interested to know where is the bathroom, for example. Bathroom, okay, where's the entrance? The entrance is here where you guys came up from. The bathroom is underneath here, okay, beside the stairs, right? Or if you have any questions, please just come to us, right? And this morning we have, or the entire day, we have about 60 booths across the downstairs, as well as I think the mezzanine floor. I think we have 3 startups or 6 startups up here as well. And then this area will be investor speed dating. So for investors who are participating in our speed dating, so this is where you are going to be for the rest of your day. All right. Other housekeeping items, if you need the Wi-Fi, look for gallery visitor. I don't think there's a password, but if you're a foreign guest and visiting us, if you would like, please support our newest unicorn, Eralo. You can get an eSIM on the platform itself, okay? And yeah, we have the food timings if you're ever interested, right? Food is here. We have breakfast from now until 11 a.m. And then we have lunch from 12 to 2. Unfortunately, we have program ongoing for the entire day, so please get yourself full during this timing. And then afternoon tea, 3 to 5:30. And finally, if you guys want and need to connect to any startups, use this QR code, right? If you have somehow missed them or you don't have a chance to speak with them, scan the QR code. We will introduce you directly to the startups after today's event, okay? Or let's say if you are not able to attend the full day or listen to the pitches, use the QR code, indicate to us your interest, and then we will basically make the introductions after this. All right, so to continue, to give you a taste of what's going to happen today, we have a short video clip that will show you about what happened last year, and maybe you'll feel lucky to be here to this year. All right, let's enjoy the video.
Let's go.
I was here last year. I think it's grown almost 100%. It was standing room only, and now the opportunity has tremendously increased just because the Asia Pacific region, especially Southeast Asia, has increased. So the interaction from people as far north Asia as Japan down to far south Australia is an interesting aspect that Plug and Play has just brought together.
Well, this is my first time attending the summit. You get to see so many different booths, so many startups, so many interesting ideas. And I think it is where you have all these ideas coming together, get to know more people, get to know more fellow founders, and just brainstorm new ideas together. I think that is really fantastic platform to do that.
So in terms of what I find interesting about the summit is that it has a very good blend of content piece that showcases thought-provoking and thought leadership speakers. And then it also has a very well-managed exhibition and curated companies, not just companies from Singapore, but from around the region. So I'm really looking forward to see who are all the key leaders in terms of technology for the region.
Being a startup, you don't know who to trust. Having Plug and Play there to oversee the relationships that they're connecting you with gives the startup trust and a bit better confidence in who the companies they're dealing with.
Working with Plug and Play is a great experience. They are very well organized. They provide a lot of good exposure to us, including today, I'm able to do the investor pitch, and also meet a lot of investors within one day.
We are working with partners like Plug and Play today to build up the corporate's institutional processes as well as to establish best practices in order to collaborate with startups more effectively, driving towards commercial outcomes at the end of their innovation efforts.
For the APAC Summit event, I realized all like-minded people has been gathered in one space and we get to connect and network. It just complements the whole ecosystem, not only as senior healthcare, but technology itself as well, and also financial services.
The experience of working with Plug and Play has been positive. Plug and Play has actually demonstrated willingness to explore and also be flexible to cater to the needs of the local market. They are a very good connector in terms of introducing startups to larger corporates, and I think this is one of the most practical way of companies to uncover innovation.
Coming from a telco perspective, we journey from being a telco to a techco company. This is where we find ecosystem partners very relevant. So joining summits like this opens our horizon to partners, both local and international, bringing in solutions that can enhance our company as well.
If I have a message to send to all the startups of the world, get in contact with one stakeholder of Plug and Play and keep the relation up and build the relation. We are talking directly with people in Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore, with people, not with a machine, and the benefits are huge.
All right, so this was what happened last year. So this year it's better. If you're sick and tired of our conference, you can visit the museum on the side, right? Okay, so next up to give you our welcome address, we have our very own Jojo Flores, co-founder of Plug and Play. Can we give him a round of applause to invite him?
Thanks, Wayne. Good morning. Morning. Hello, how's everybody doing? Excited for the rest of the day, I hope. Just a show of hands, who here is their first time with our APAC Summit? Wow. Like almost half, huh? And who here just flew in or just traveled from outside of Singapore? Also the same. Pretty cool. Hello, everybody again. My name is Jojo, and I started Plug and Play in Silicon Valley in 2006. And together with Jupe, the second oldest guy in this room, we started Plug and Play APAC in Singapore in 2010. So it's been 15 years. What an exciting journey for us. And while I was getting ready, I was like saying, what do I say? What message do I want to share with all of you this morning? And unfortunately, I was tuned in on CNA, and there was this news about Amazon laying off 30,000 people, and then in 2025, almost 50,000 layoffs from the big tech companies like Microsoft and Meta, Google, etc., etc. I didn't want to start off this message with some negative news, but I also recall back in 2006 when I started Plug and Play, the tech bubble had just burst. If you remember. And about 300,000 people lost their jobs in Silicon Valley. Okay? But as they say, when a door closes, a window opens. And I think one of the things that the silver lining around those people losing their jobs was that it created a lot of entrepreneurs as well. And for my business, when we started in Plug and Play, having about 18,000 square meters of empty real estate space that I wanted to fill, immediately there were in about 12 months we were able to fill them with all of these startups, these entrepreneurs that came out from that market that lost their jobs. Okay. So now looking at the next 15 years, I was thinking, Southeast Asia has always been like the economy of Southeast Asia has always been anchored on labor, on service business and consumer. Okay, and I think all of these layoffs that we're hearing, maybe from AI, from robots, et cetera, really opens a new window for Southeast Asia in the next 15 years. And that is creating IP, creating new companies, startups, founders, entrepreneurs. And I think I really look forward to that in the next 15 years as we stay here in this region and build our business. But for now, please enjoy the rest of the day. We have a lot of startups out there, the real stars of today. We encourage all of you to please meet them, collaborate with them. A lot of them needs money, so bring out your checkbooks. A lot of them needs customers, so be open to them and just do business with them. Okay, this is the next wave of, I think, where Southeast Asia should head towards, as a region in a global perspective. Again, thank you very much for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And up next to give you some updates on what we're doing in the APAC region, we have Jup Tan, our managing partner for Plug and Play APAC. Can we give him a round of applause, please?
Hello. All right, a very good morning, everyone. My name is Drew. I'm one of the managing partners for Plug and Play in Asia Pacific. Warm welcome to all of you and a very good morning. As you can tell, Wayne is a little bit rusty on his emceeing duties, so we'll make sure he takes on more of those going forward. I was also going to lead with the Amazon news, but Jojo beat me to it, so I don't actually have anything funny to say. So I'll dive right in, okay? The stars of the shows today are our panelists, our mentors, our co-investor partners, our government stakeholders, and of course our startups, founders, and entrepreneurs. And we really want you to hear from them. There's a lot of content here today. So I'll just kick off very briefly with a short introduction. And for those that joined us last night at the reception, you've heard me say this before. A lot of you have already seen this slide, so I will try to zoom through them quickly. Plug and Play has three core pillars to our business. We run accelerator and startup programs around the world. We work with Fortune 1000 companies in external innovation, corporate innovation. And at the end of the day, at the heart of the matter, we are early stage investors. So we invest from pre-seed to Series A around the world. We started in Silicon Valley, but we quickly, well, not so quickly, expanded outside to first to Singapore. For those that don't know our history, Singapore was the first overseas office that we set up. Today we are 600-700 people worldwide across 60 plus locations, working in innovation with a lot of partners. We have backed some of the best startups around the world, and we're very proud that earlier this year we minted our latest unicorn, and our first one, at least in our portfolio, from Southeast Asia. So for those that are traveling, eSIMs, Airalo. They need to pay us for this pitch. Just very broadly, we have a pretty wide footprint in Asia. Singapore alongside Beijing, Shanghai for China, Tokyo, Seoul for East Asia are the key hubs for us in Asia. And these are some of the verticals and the programs and the partners that we work with. And now very quickly, in alphabetical order, we just wanted to call out some of the new partners, corporate partners and public sector partners that have joined us in the last 12 months or so. ASUS from Taiwan, I think needs no introduction. AUPP Technology Center is one of the three partners that you will hear from Cambodia. Cambodia is the latest location that we have launched in Southeast Asia, and we're very excited about that. ATC is part of AUPP, the American University of Phnom Penh, our other partner in Cambodia. Bayer needs no introduction. Some of you may have heard from Rosalind last night at the event. They are one of our first EDB corporate venture launchpad partners, and we're working with them on open innovation for life sciences pharmaceuticals. Brave Connective, that's part of Globe Telecom from the Philippines. We are working with them on future innovation that can better connect brands to their audiences and customers around the region. Daegu Technopark, one of our newer Korean partners. We've actually just did an expo in Daegu City just last week, I believe. Gift from Gujarat. So it took us many years to finally launch in India, but we did launch earlier this year, last year to this year, and our first program in India is focused on fintech financial services, and that's in the city of Gujarat. We urge all of you to visit. I'll be visiting soon, before summer. HTX probably needs no introduction as well, but HTX is one of the Singapore's agencies that is looking at innovation for the public sector. With HTX, we are looking at public safety and other areas. Italian Trade Agency is one of the many international government partners that we have working on market access programs. And in this case, it will be Italian startups coming from Europe to use Singapore as a launchpad into Southeast Asia. Jurong Port, one of our new maritime partners, I think needs no introduction. Also, the Maritime Port Authority of Singapore. You will hear from them in the first panel discussion, I believe. And we are here to join the consortium that's working on Pier 71 to help to bring the program to the international arena. The Ministry of Port and Telecommunications, this is our third partner in Cambodia. They are one of the leading ministries that are supercharging digital and innovation in Cambodia, and that's one of our key partners over there. Mitsubishi Research Institute, this is a little bit still under wraps, but we are working with them on an initiative in Vietnam on open innovation with the Innovation Hub in near Hanoi. National Development Company is a state-owned enterprise of the Philippines, working with them with their Innovation Hub on their future innovation roadmap. PSA Singapore, our last maritime partner that's also joined us recently. And again, you'll hear from the maritime panel soon, so I'll skip that. TPC, our keynote speaker, May coming up later, is from Octave Capital, that's part of TPC, a fourth generation family office that became a big conglomerate. And looking at, I think, making the future a better place, a more sustainable place, very relevant messages for today. University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, USTP, one of our new partners in Mindanao, I apologize, Mindanao, Southern Philippines, working on future innovation roadmap as well. And with that, we are trying to catch up on time. So again, warm welcome, good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoy the panel discussions and the startup pitches. And I will let Wayne continue to take it away. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, so now we've gotten most of the plug and play stuff off the stage. It's right into the meat of the conference, right? So to kick off our opening keynote today, we have Mei Liu, CEO and Executive Director of Octave Capital, and she'll talk about a bit about the investments and innovation space, especially in Asia's regenerative economy, right? So can we give her a warm round of applause to invite Mei to give us our opening keynote. Mei, please.
Thank you. That's a really impressive list of our new members, so congratulations for all the good work and for bringing everybody together. So good morning, everyone. I'm truly honored to be here today and very grateful for the chance to share this space with such an inspiring group of change makers. And a very big thank you to the Plug and Play team for bringing us together on this room, innovators, investors, and ecosystem builders. And we all are here today because I think we're all united and we care deeply about shaping a better future for Asia and beyond. As introduced, I'm Mei from Octave Capital. We are the impact investing arm of TPC Group. This was just an introduction of who we are. We are a fourth generation family enterprise, and we are rooted in maritime and well-being. Now, our mission is simple but bold. We invest towards a well-being economy, and one that puts people, communities, and the planet at the center of prosperity. So we invest not just for financial returns, but for social and environmental outcomes that last. And we believe that the time has come to move from extractive to regenerative capital. And our goal isn't just to fund the next unicorn. I know that's important, but it's really to also regenerate the very systems that sustain us. And that's our environment, our societies, and our shared future. Now let's talk about innovation. I think that's why we're all here today. So innovation is really the heart of regeneration. And it's not simply about new technology, but it's about what it is, reimagining what's possible. And it's about designing systems that create net positive impact. So when you go out and walk to the startups, don't think about just the technology and what it brings to you immediately. Think about what it really brings to you and your environment. And that could be using AI to optimize resources, or applying blockchain for supply chain transparency, and leveraging biomimicry to engineer materials inspired by nature. Now, but let's be honest, right? So open innovation is hard work. I spent over a decade driving open innovation in very hard to big industries like energy, climate, and maritime transformation. So when I look back, for some reason, I always end up looking at working in industries that are actually really, really hard to move forward and transform. But it itself is a challenge that I actually truly enjoy. But I can tell you it's a journey that has vision, conviction, and patience. Now, why is it so difficult? Okay, first, because we are investing into the unknown future. It takes conviction to back something that might not work. So a technology that might sound amazing on paper, but when it's implemented, it can fail because it could be the cost is too high, or there are operational concerns like safety. And that's where I think plug and play really help to really be able to translate that technology into real life action. Second, it needs alignment of resources and stakeholders. And we all know that time, budget, and buy-in are always limited. And third, it actually requires a mindset shift. So the best operators in your company may not be the best innovators, and vice versa. So that's why it all needs to come together. Now, when I was preparing this talk, so I asked myself, so of all these years, what's been my biggest success and what's been my biggest failure? So I start off with my biggest failure, right? So it is really about not securing the right stakeholders early enough. So I've been very fortunate to be working with very senior leadership, even when I was very young in my career, who has always been very open to innovation. But even with leadership support, if the teams on the ground see a pilot as a distraction, your pilot will stall, right? Now let's talk about success then. So what has been my greatest success? And it's about building collective conviction. And that's why we're all here today. So several years ago, I co-founded Free Electrons. This is a global accelerator with 9 utilities around the world, all coming together to innovate. Next year, I was just reminded by some of my friends, marks its 10th anniversary. And it's a testament to how shared culture and persistence can turn ideas into impact. Now at Octave Capital and TPC, we apply the same spirit. We run proof of concept pilots to test and scale new ideas. For instance, one of our partnerships at TPC involved a company called Coach Solutions. We used their weather routing and voyage optimization solution, and it led us to having like 3% in fuel savings a year. So I know that might sound small, but it's really actually a meaningful cut to carbon emissions. And we're not stopping there. So through our collaboration with Plug and Play, under EDB's corporate venture launchpad, we're building new pathways for startups to test, refine, and scale faster. Because when innovation meets implementation, regeneration happens. Now let's talk about Asia, right, where we all sit today. Our region is one of the fastest growing in the world, expanding at about 4 to 5% annually. We're very fortunate to have governments here who are backing green infrastructure, renewable energy, and deep tech innovation. And across the region, we are seeing startups pioneering climate-smart agriculture, circular materials, and next-gen energy storage. Now, these are not fringe developments. They are signals of structural shift towards a regenerative economy. So just last week, I was in Seattle for One Ocean Week. And this was a global convening of leaders, policymakers, and innovators in the maritime space. Now, but despite the recent setback in the IMO's net zero framework, I was surprised. The mood was surprisingly resilient. And why is that so? So this industry, with vessels that last 25 to 30 years, understands that a delay of 1 to 3 years is a blip in a long-term cost. And the commitment to decarbonize in the maritime space remains steadfast to net zero targets by 2050. So setbacks are inevitable in any transformation. When one part of the ecosystem falters, others must step up. So we're now seeing many global peers looking to Asia for collaboration because we have the talent, we have the innovation, and the manufacturing muscle to drive global change. So I truly believe this is our moment. Now, Asia's ocean sector manages 2/3 of global maritime trade, produces 95% of seaweed, and hosts 75% of coral species. Yet, this region faces the most acute climate risk. So we think that investing in its regeneration is not optional, it's essential. And that's why we launched an Asian Ocean Fund, targeting 75 million, in partnership with Catapult Ocean, a leading Norwegian ocean impact fund. This partnership between Octave Capital and Catapult bridges financial expertise, technical knowledge, and deep global networks. Our vision is to de-risk early-stage ventures, to crowd in catalytic investors, and empower entrepreneurs to drive Asia's transition to a thriving blue economy. We'll invest across maritime decarbonization, marine ecosystem restoration, and sustainable aquaculture. Now, what makes this initiative particularly exciting is our approach. We combine an accelerator platform with venture investment. This means we don't just invest capital, we roll out our sleeves to nurture startups. We will build corporate partnerships in the industry together with TPC that will provide a test bed for startups to validate their solutions and provide the industry with access to cutting-edge technologies. Because innovation only really matters when it's implemented. And we do this through the 4Ps approach, aligning private, public, philanthropic, and partnership capital to drive systemic change in the nascent ecosystem. Because no single actor can solve complex challenges alone, it takes an orchestra to play in harmony. So looking ahead, Asia has the opportunity and the responsibility to lead a new movement of innovation for regeneration. A movement where economic growth and well-being go hand in hand, and where capital becomes a creative force, not a destructive one, and where regeneration, not extraction, becomes our shared North Star. So thank you very much, and I hope today sparks more collaborations that move us from ideas into action. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, May, for that inspiring and really positive speech. I think you're much more positive than my two bosses on stage earlier. And if you guys noticed, when May was speaking, the sun suddenly shone through the ceiling. So I think it's looking like a good omen for us, right? All right, now moving on to the panels and the fireside chats. We have a series of 4 chats lined up for you today. And first, to kick off the panels would be our maritime panel, all right? Can we move to the maritime slide, please? All right, anyway, let me just introduce the topic as well as our panelists today. So our panelists will be talking about innovation and collaborative ventures in maritime Singapore. And joining us on stage, our panelists would be Desmond Ong, Chief Digital Officer, Jurong Port. Can we welcome you guys on stage? And maybe if you can sit beside or sit in front of your face, her photo. All right, second we have Matthew Webster, Assistant Vice President for PSA. We have Thomas Ting, Chief Digital Officer, Maritime Port Authority of Singapore. And to moderate the panel, we have John Ang, Director, Strategic Partnerships and Special Projects at Plug and Play. I will now hand the time over to John to host the panel. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
Thanks, Wayne. Chairs are okay? Hope they're comfortable. A little high, huh?
My
yeah, a
fault.
little high. Well, welcome everyone here today. Very glad that you guys are here to join us. As Wayne had mentioned, my name is John, and I am part of the team at Plug and Play. I'm pretty excited today to talk a bit more about maritime and really exploring some topics as it relates to it. I think it's a very interesting time. A lot of tariffs running around. I think a lot of uncertainty in the market. And I think also, as May had mentioned earlier on, I think there's a lot of potential in the Asia-Pacific region itself, especially when it comes to sea-based technologies and really just making sure that we promote regenerative technologies. With that, I think we do want to explore some topics as it relates to, say, the maritime innovation ecosystem, especially how we can enable a lot more tangible outcomes in order to make sure that we drive outcomes forward, right? So with that, maybe I'll just go around and just have our speakers give a quick introduction of themselves before we actually kick off the panel. Maybe Desmond, let's start with you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see everyone here, getting excited about what's going to discuss. Just a quick introduction. My name is there anyway, so I'm Desmond. And Jurong Port, basically, it's a port that does everything that's non-containerized. Our big brother PSA does everything that's containerized. And so for us, we do everything that it's bulk, break bulk, and very driven by industry specific in Singapore itself. So construction and a bit of offshore and as well as even livestock. We talk about giraffes, MRT trains, everything that comes through the port. So I'll share a bit more later, but mainly this is what we do, and I look after the digital side of things. Thank you.
Very good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew. I'm from PSA Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital arm of PSA International, which is a global container port operator. So essentially what we do is we are the part of the company that takes the most risk. So we are the external innovation arm, and possibly soon will be the internal innovation arm as well. We essentially evolved from what was formerly called PSA Unboxed, which started in 2016 as an accelerator arm, and we've shifted. So we went from 50K to 100K investments to now we're looking to $2 million and beyond. And our AUM has shifted from 50 million to about 200 million USD. So the size and scale that we work on has expanded a lot. I look forward to talking more about this as we move on. Thank you.
Good morning, Thomas from the Maritime and Port Authority. So a lot of people are confused between PSA and MPA, but of course MPA is a regulator, so we regulate the maritime and port industry, and we since corporatized some 2 decades ago, then these are 2 separate entities. So PSA remains a private entity that operates globally, including Singapore, and MPA is a regulator, but we also an industry promoter. So we promote the growth of the maritime ecosystems, the innovation ecosystems, but we also have a role to safeguard Singapore's strategic maritime interests at the international platforms such as the IMO. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we have some heavy hitters here today. I think if you think about the Singapore maritime industry, probably pretty much represented here. But maybe I can start with you, Thomas, on the sort of regulator side, with a question about the maritime sector. The maritime sector is often seen as traditional. As the MPA's Chief Digital Officer, can you speak to the top R&D and innovation priorities for maritime in Singapore? And how do you ensure that these priorities are aligned with both industry needs and global trends, such as decarbonization and digitalization?
Yeah, I must say this perception of that maritime is traditional has been there for a long while, because maritime is indeed a very traditional industry since several millennia ago, right? But of course, in the recent decades, we have seen very rapid evolutions, especially the maritime companies, the port operators are very forthcoming. If you look at the modern ports of today, so for example, the PSA and Jurong port, as well as globally, as well as the modern ships of today, actually, it's been a lot of technology and innovation on those fronts. But of course, having said that, the maritime industry is very diverse. There are many different subsectors within the maritime industries, and of course, we can understand some of the companies. If you're looking at the 5,000 over maritime-related establishment in Singapore, 200 over shipping groups in Singapore, some of the subsectors are still kind of falling behind based on some of the surveys we're looking at in terms of digital transformation. So in terms of the innovation research priorities, is primarily to look at the challenges that the maritime industry in maritime Singapore is facing, primarily in terms of the ports. How do we address the shortage of manpower through automation? So in the recent years, in fact, over a decade, we have been working very closely with the terminal operators in terms of automation and digitalization technology to make sure that we can address our manpower constraint. In the area of shipping, we want to remain as a vibrant and attractive locations for shipping companies to be based in Singapore. And the ships of tomorrow is going to be very different in the future. Of course, they're built for 25 years and all that, but the modern ships is going to be better connected, and a lot of the shoreside operations are already building capabilities through whatever connectivity that's available today, Starlink and all that, right? To remote control, monitor some of the operations for best fleet performance. I think may talk about performance, voyage, passage, route optimization, weather trimming. A lot of technologies is put into the modern ships. So this is yet another priority area that we are supporting the maritime companies and the tech companies that are based in Singapore to see how we can innovate and remain an attractive location. And the third area, because we are the top bunkering port, providing the energy and the fuel to the ships calling our port, we want to remain that. We want to build from our strength. If you look at the amount of the bunkers that's provided from Singapore, it's probably 1/5 of the global bunkers that's provided, 3 times more than the second ports that are providing the fuel. And this is again an important area because based on the IMO net zero targets, the future fuel is going to be very different. And we have to look at how the safety of the ammonia, methanol, and all the future ships, how can deliver it efficiently and safely from the port of Singapore. And lastly, to conclude my very long part of the thing, in terms of the digital tech and tech push transformation, of course, all of us have to look at AI. What is the potential for jobs and skills and businesses, and the implication of cybersecurity. So these are all the areas that we're putting priority investment into the maritime space. Yeah, thanks.
It sounds like you're very on top of it. I think it sounds great. So I'd like to keep this pretty casual as well. I think if any of the other speakers have want to jump in and point, just feel free to as well. So I think I wanted to add to your point, Thomas, where you mentioned that promoting digitalization is something that's quite important in the ecosystem itself. So in doing that, in promoting digitalization and innovation across the entire maritime ecosystem, how does the MPA support initiatives that enable smaller players, startups, mid-sized operators, to really adopt cutting-edge technologies alongside, say, larger entities, like maybe say your PSA or Jurong Port, ensuring widespread benefits for Singapore's global competitiveness?
So it's quite a long question, so I'll try to take it in pieces.
Yes.
Try to keep it short.
So
the role of the government agencies and for MPA is to provide a trusted, neutral, and enabling environment for the businesses, the tech startups, small and big companies to thrive within the ecosystems. So in a way, we're trying to provide some level of level playing fields. If you look at a lot of initiatives that we launch, we are also promoting a certain level of competition so that we can innovate and we can provide cost competitive solutions for the companies that are based here in Singapore. I think these are some of the things that we're doing for the smaller as well as the bigger companies. Of course, the government agencies, MPA, ESG, IMDA, all have various forms of grants. So there are no lack of grants to support companies who are willing to come forward. But I think a lot is also about the awareness, especially amongst the smaller companies, about what is possible, what are other people doing. So we are creating a lot of platforms like Peer 71, which is a collaboration platforms, creating Smart Port Challenge, which aggregates all the key challenges from the maritime industry, prepared for the tech companies to come in and solve these key challenges, and hopefully their products can scale. We also have platforms like Maritime Week, Singapore Maritime Week, April next year, to facilitate knowledge exchange, matchmaking, discovery of partners. So there are a lot of these kind of platforms that the government entities have put in place to promote the vibrant ecosystems.
Highly recommend the Singapore Maritime Week, by the way. So anyone's interested, just sign up, please. But so maybe on the note of sort of digitalization, maybe I'm turn the time over to Desmond. As Jurong Port's Chief Digital Officer, you're really at the forefront of operationalizing technology. Can you share an example of a data-driven initiative that's not only impacted port operations, but also opened doors for startups to scale their solutions through collaborations with many different ecosystem players?
I think that's a very difficult question because...
Sorry, my questions are so long, but yeah, thank you for...
No, but you know what? So when it comes to data, I mean, data itself, it's not the main part for digitalization. I can be very upfront with you right now. If you ask me 20 years ago, the startup scene is like very small in terms of maritime. Fast forward right now, the only reason why startups are all looking at this as a big opportunity for every startup, it's because the whole port itself no longer just look at it as a cargo handling operation itself. And I'm going to come to that answer to your question earlier, right? So the point is that the whole supply chain now becomes very interconnected with the port. Basically, the land and sea the port is the nexus. And downstream, it's where all these communities can then join and be part of this whole ecosystem. Jurong Port, for example, it's not container, but it's non-containerized and bulk and break bulk, has to do with support in the industry, as I mentioned earlier, primarily in Singapore's context, construction. Just give you an example. So having construction materials right to the site requires cement, sand and stone, and steel. All these come through the port, and you'll be thinking, wow, the port can just handle the cargo from the waterfront to the land and let the industry settle themselves. But I think there are bigger things that you can do as a port together with the community, including MPA. And we ask ourselves how to do that. The main way to do this is basically create an ecosystem around it in the port itself. And that it's by itself create catalysts for all startups to look at, is there an opportunity to do like Grab, Uber, like kind of transportation? Could it be done in a more green way in terms of, because you have scale now, you actually basically put everything near to the port. We call them the port-centric ecosystem, bringing all the supply chain closer to the port such that what goes out, it's kind of like the final product to the site itself. So just for example, today we have built this ready mixed concrete ecosystem that basically puts all the batching plants right next to the waterfront. That creates potential for Grab driving, for example, your concrete, instead of having it individual companies to run their own. How do you do that? You know, it's not just digitalization. The data itself is one way to collect, but the more important part is innovation. You can go green now because investments are a lot more easier for one player to provide services for all the batching plant operators, rather than just, you know, individual companies trying to put in money and figuring out, you know, this is not my core part of the business as a batching plant, but rather someone who is like a startup, innovative enough to look into these opportunities. So I think that's where, you know, with this whole downstream supply chain, that creates opportunity for startups. And happy to talk to anyone who's interested in that. Thank you.
Okay, no, I think really having that nexus, that community that you put together really allows for more, I don't like to use this word like synergies, but you guys can work together a bit more and really enable better outcomes. So actually on that, in terms of, you know, the maritime industry and where we are in terms of innovation, I did want to ask, from your perspective as an operator, which areas or sub-areas within the maritime and port sector should startups focus on to drive true impactful innovation? And also conversely, which areas do you see as overcrowded or less promising for new entrants?
Generally, the industry itself, as we all know, is very fragmented, right? I mean, there are a lot of players down there. You know, everyone has, and I always have a chat with Matt, I'll joke about this. You know, the industry loves inefficiencies because that's where you get a lot of, you know, the value creation for yourself. But someone smart will realize that actually, you know what, I can take this pie and do a much better supply chain. At the end of the day, you're bringing value to the industry, and that's where the national level, the industry level would want to see, right? We talked about green, for example, earlier on, May talked a little bit about green. I mean, green itself, if you look at it from a sole proprietor standpoint, yeah, you may do it from a very good green-hearted perspective, or you could do it just because government asks you to do it. But if you build an ecosystem around it and you start to see that there's opportunity because, you know, there's value from a scale standpoint, then that's where, you know, we can actually drive certain of these initiatives. And I think startups looking at these kind of areas would be, I guess, the opportunity for them in the future. Yeah.
I think you bring up a great point. I think also the point on inefficiency, that's a whole topic on its own. I think it's a huge problem for the space, right? Yeah. But I think that's maybe for another time. But Matthew, maybe over to you.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I mean, I fully agree because globally, we find there's a huge problem of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a huge problem. Every time we go into a different area, we have a supply chain arm called PSA BDP, and we have great struggles. We are offering transformative solutions, but a lot of time there's resistance. But we found slowly it's changing. So hopefully it changes for the better in the next few years.
Really hope so too. It's tough to change some of that. So over to you, Matthew. So did want to ask, as PSA invests heavily in innovation, how do you de-risk the development and deployment of new technologies such as port automation? What's your approach to vetting and integrating these innovations into PSA's operations?
So I think it's interesting to bring up because I talked about us being the risk taker for the company, but at the same time, the new technologies, platforms we bring in, we have to de-risk for the company as well. So there's 3 areas that we look at when we do this. One of the big challenges we have is you can't just take technology and drop it in anywhere. We have ports all over the world. Every continent except Africa, we have ports, we have inland terminals, we have a marine arm, so we are all over the place. And it's not so easy as to take a technology and just drop it in. So we can't do that. So we do a few things first. The first thing we do is we start small. Even when we brought in automated guided vehicles, we did that about 15 years ago. We started very small. What we have is something called the PSA Living Lab. We had a first iteration back in 2010, 2011, where we tested this technology, which is now deployed at scale in Tuas Port. By the time Tuas Port is finished in the 2040s, we will have something like 2,000 AGVs, possibly IGVs as well. So that's how we apply the technology. We look small. So we'll do things like we'll sandbox the ideas. We'll do pilot trials and POCs, which is actually very important for us when we look at startups. They need to be able to pilot trial, they need to be able to do POCs within our terminal environment to show us that this works. That can often be a challenge because startups will then say, well, does that mean you'll invest in us? We don't know. And that can be the big question mark when we ask people to do POCs and pilot trials. So the other thing we do as well is we we co-design, with partners and line divisions. So we work closely with our startup partners and with the line divisions and departments to make the solutions work. So I mentioned earlier, we talked about external and internal innovation. I'm part of the internal innovation team for PSA. We are kind of voluntary. It's not something that anyone does full time, but we're looking to combine that with our external innovation team as well, which would then bridge our line divisions and bring them closer to the startups that we've invested in. We've invested in about 25 startups now so far since 2016. This is just so that our investments can fit into our operations. The third thing, of course, that's very important is validating with our partners. So working very closely with MPA, for example. We also work very closely with A-Star to enhance and develop new technologies. There are a few things we're working with related to AI that we're working with A-Star on that we're quite excited about. And hoping that these can be validated using not just the startups themselves, but the industry partners to help us make them work. So another good example I want to talk about, I talked about starting small. We have a company we invested in called Venti Technology. So Venti are an autonomous truck provider, horizontal transport. So what we started in limited areas of the port to do live trials. And now we have a range of these autonomous vehicles within the port trialing alongside manned vehicles. So that really shows the example of starting small and growing bigger after testing. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think that was a very comprehensive understanding of what PSA really does to help de-risk development and deployment. So on that note as well, on adopting some of these new technologies, how is PSA contributing to the digitalization and innovation of the entire maritime ecosystem beyond its own operations? Sort of like by fostering inclusive platforms or programs that allow startup suppliers and other stakeholders to co-innovate and really share in sort of some of these advancements.
Okay, so when I talk about PSA Ventures, I'd like to also mention we're not just investing in startups. We also kind of see ourselves as a platform for innovation. And this has become more and more of a reality. We rebranded beginning of this year. And the more we discuss and talk to partners, the more we realize that there is huge potential for us to be this platform for innovation. Through PSA Ventures, we open up our terminal data and experiences to help startups and partners test. So we give them full access to professionals, some that have been working 20, 30 years with some of these port technologies that we have. And like I mentioned before, running those innovation sandboxes and test beds, we give the startups opportunities to really trial their technologies. I can think of an example now. We work with a company that's doing AI-enabled procurement. So we have our procurement team working very closely with them to make the solution work. And what's happened with that is they've been able to scale beyond PSA to offer other companies this AI-enabled procurement platform based on what they've learned from PSA. So we try to work very closely with the partners to create mutually beneficial growth. So one of the other things I've noted is that the VC space has changed a bit in the last few years. We're seeing less and less money being openly pushed forward. We're seeing a lot of money moving into public markets. I don't know if they're connected, but I see that being a reality. So what we see is that startups don't just need capital. It's not just about giving them money. They need real-world validation and access to scale, and that's something that we can offer them. And that's where venture arms like us can make that a reality for startups. So any startups around, inside, outside, please feel free to come find me. I'll be walking around. I'm happy to chat if you have a technology that's applicable to the port.
Sounds good. Okay, so I want to leave a bit more time for our closing sort of question here. Have to go to AI, right? Everyone talks about it. So really to conclude here, let's look at the future of maritime innovation. And I think, after this question, anyone, you can just hop in if you guys want to answer. But how do we determine the right levels of innovation for different maritime subsectors, avoiding the push of advanced tools like AI when readiness is low, and instead focusing on upskilling and phase adoption? And what would a successful outcome look like in elevating the overall innovation landscape? Anyone can take it away.
Okay, I can just jump in. Yeah. So one of the things I think is very important is matching ambition with readiness, especially for new technologies, making sure that the fundamentals of people, the infrastructure are all in place. So one of the examples I like to talk about is battery technology. So battery technology is a huge deal for PSA now because we are using so many lithium-ion batteries, and we're using them in second life form as well for battery energy storage. But there's a new reality as well, and that is that not just for us, but for what? All those cars, those BYDs driving around in Singapore, what's going to happen to all those lithium-ion batteries in a decade? There's going to be so many batteries moving onto the market. And when I was in France for a investment committee meeting, I met with a Second Life battery company that was recycling batteries. Of course, they were recycling at a much smaller scale. They were doing, for the little motorcycles and things like that. But they were looking to scale up. And seeing the opportunities there are quite incredible. And I think for sustainability and for charting the course for the future, these are areas that are quite important to look at.
I was going to just say, I see AI in the maritime very differently, and I think the maritime people know that because, the whole AI thing is just a buzzword for us. We think of it as, wow, AI this, AI that, but you know what? Frankly, in the port or in the maritime logistics supply chain, a lot of things to do with AI will come with, I guess, how do you put that AI into some of the operational efficiency, safety, as I think one of the key areas that we look into from a port standpoint, and supply chain as we speak. And I'll say that these are not out-of-the-box innovative, but it is very innovative for the industry itself. And how you would bring that across, it's really understanding the business, the nuances. And I'll tell you, this is where startup should really rub shoulders with Matt, maybe, I mean, any ports or anyone's supply chain. The reason is this, right? You need to understand the nuances in the maritime where, okay, what exactly is the pain point of all these things in a practical sense for maritime? Because a lot of times you do technology in, say, fintech, or you do, in FMCG stuff. These are very, I would say, forward-looking compared to the maritime. But then the maritime itself has scale, has a lot of things that you could apply for. So my own suggestions for a startup when it comes to AI, really understand the business, understand the port operations, or even shipping for that matter. That would really help in that. And that's where I think I was going to add on that as a port, we kind of like facilitate that process as a, Thomas told me before, Queen Bee kind of concept. And I think that works, right? Because we would have that opportunity and platform for startups to do. One, two is that the industry players that connects with us, because ultimately the nexus, they connect with us, whether it's truckers, whether is it shipping companies, whether is it even the end client consumers, these are the guys that connects with us. These are the guys who would know the pain points. And I think having that as a start point would really help, yeah.
I'm just going to quickly add into that. So I think a great point in terms of, I think the maritime space itself is just a bit nuanced, but so much scale and so much opportunity. But sorry, Thomas, over to you.
I think we need not see AI as a standalone technology. A lot of times, combined with the different technology, it can make a lot of difference. For example, in the area of underwater hull cleaning, inspection, and robotics, this has gained a lot of momentum because of the net zero targets by the international organizations, and companies want to save their fuel and all that. And AI can really make a difference because today, the divers, even robotics today are still not doing a completely comprehensive jobs. So when AI comes in with a good computer visions, with machine learning, all this lingo, it can do a much better job than what is possible today. In the area of digital transformation, I think we can combine with AI in the whole concept. And companies or tech companies should really look at what is the jobs to be done. I think all of us are familiar with this design thinking concept, right? What is the main pain point and challenges we are to overcome in order to penetrate the access to the maritime companies? Because if you try to push the technology, I have this tech, I have all these things, it's going to be very difficult. But if you have a good understanding of the job to be done, and also what is the key pain point the customers want to solve, then I think the AI technology will come into a very good play in that space. And for that, I will just add on that our Smart Port Challenge, the PS91, is concluding this year. We have published 10 over challenge statements, problem statement gathered from the maritime companies in Singapore, which are also having global operations. Go to the PS91 website and take a look at some of these challenge statements because they are not fully resolved. Some of the challenge statements are very tough to solve. I mean, PSA can give you examples of the coning, deconing of the container, lashing on the vessels, the robotics inspection, using robots to inspect the ballast tank, the cargo hold. How do you solve that? It's not been solved for a long time. So these are interesting. Otherwise, you can come to our event on the 5th of November. All of you are welcome. 5th of November, check the Pearson website. Doing a bit of marketing here.
All right, so I think you guys hear it loud and clear that there's some good events from MPA. So if you guys can participate, that'd be great. So I just want to say thanks so much to the whole panel here. I think just based on what we have discussed here, I mean, honestly, the maritime space is pretty tough. I think there are a lot of nuance, a lot of challenges, very fragmented, but I think we're all working together to go towards that one goal. And I think a lot of all the speakers here today within their organizations have been pushing and really putting in a strong effort in order to make sure that we can innovate and push the industry forward. And I think, it's really been a pleasure for Plug and Play to be working with them. Just like to give a shout out where, if you're a startup, you have some great solutions, please approach the speakers here. They're more than happy to explore, see if there are any areas for collaboration, assuming there's a good fit. And please give us a big round of applause for the speakers here today. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you to our panelists and John for moderating. We have a photo-taking moment. Yes, and like what our panelists have shared, I think this year we're starting to explore maritime in this part of the world, and for partners like MPA, they have been working with maritime partners over the last, I think, 6 or 7 different batches. So there is still quite a lot of opportunities in that space. And for those of you who have startups, innovation, whom you might not think would it be relevant to the maritime industry, maybe feel free to talk to them, right? And then you can actually open up new verticals, new worlds for your technology. All right, while we're setting up for the next panel, we have talking also one of the key trends and the interesting areas to discuss today would be talking about future-ready cities, as well as things like safety and public security, right? So we have on the topic of advancing security, connectivity, and urban innovation, we have our panelists, Eric Chua, Director of Partnerships, Home Team Science and Technology Agency. We have James Ong, Chief Strategy Officer, South Chi Group. And then to moderate the panel, we have our own Patricia Nordstrom, Senior Director for Corporate Partnerships at Plug and Play APAC. Can we give our panelists a round of applause to welcome them to the stage, please? Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome, and thank you so much for spending time with us today. We have a great set of speakers all throughout the day, and for everyone's reference, just wanted to introduce myself first. So as Wayne mentioned, my name is Patricia. I'm a Senior Director of Partnerships. I work within the Sustainable Futures pod at Plug and Play, so really cut across several industries that look at sustainability, decarbonization, new materials, ag and food, and various other aspects of that value chain. I also work a lot with government, so as a result of that, I thought it could be interesting to look at what is a smart city really entail? Is there a public-private engagement that can really evolve it? And while we go through this panel today, we'd like to keep a few things in mind, right? So for us to achieve a smart city, it really relies on 3 key components to be done correctly. First is secure infrastructure. Second is ethical deployment of AI. And third is resilient connectivity. So these are the 3 key themes that we think are going to lead the charge to make a successful smart city. And here we have on this panel a couple of folks who I'll let themselves introduce their organization, what they're doing, and a little bit more about some initiatives. But they can represent both sides of the coin, both public and private sector collaboration to make smart cities a reality. So maybe first off, starting with James, if you could introduce yourself, what you do at the organization, and how you view this area of smart cities enablement.
Sure. Hi everyone, name's James, CSO for TPC. So TPC is a family-owned business, 4th generation. My colleague just now was speaking. We're 120 years old, so it's very rare for an organization to be that old and still innovating at the same time. So innovation is at the core of our ethos, core of our culture, and we want to innovate more. Our operating businesses cover 2 segments. So we're shipping, ports, logistics, shipyards, fabrication, 3PL, ship management. So that's the core business. We also have another secondary business, which is our wellness business. So we develop real estate assets across Asia. We have altogether about 6 million square meters of real estate covering our ports business, our logistics, and of course our hospitality arm. Then May helps us deploy capital into VC side of things globally. Yeah, so that's TPC as a whole. Thanks.
Perfect. And next up, Eric, if you could introduce more about HTX and some of the interesting work you're doing.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm the Director of Partnership in HTX. Well, HTX is a state board under the Ministry of Home Affairs. As HTX, we so-called are responsible for introducing all the science and tech capabilities for the ministry so that it will enable our home team officers to force multiply in their operations in that sense.
Fantastic. So maybe in summary, look at these folks as some of the key enablers for smart cities, whether it's urban development or public safety and security enablement from a government perspective. So there's a couple of themes I want to go through. First of all, one is establishing the foundation of trust, right? So like security and governance. This is not always the sexiest topic. It is very much important to get right, nonetheless. So I have a question for each of you. Let's start with Eric, right? So how does HTX strategically engage with startups and external innovators to source and pilot cutting-edge technologies? How does HTX support startups to integrate novel solutions in a compliant manner? So really looking at the right foundation from a government perspective, right? Which is even harder.
Thanks, Patricia. So, well, technology is exciting. AI, humanoid robots, and such is all exciting. But in HTX, when we implement solution, we don't just look at how sexy the technology is, because we need to be sure that the solutions that we put in place are really meets the requirement of the home team officers. And also to say that they need to be fully tested and be able to operate under the kind of environment that officers work with, whether be it environment in terms of weather, the kind of lighting conditions that are very adverse at some times, and also perhaps connectivity issues which at points may be intermittent. So for that, we always start with understanding the real problem, defining the real problem that our ground officers face on the ground. What are those issues that they are facing? Then for us at Hatch is an innovation arm within HTX. We will scout globally for startups with promising solutions. And with that, we carry out trials, POC trials with them in a very realistic environment, especially perhaps in the real environment that officers work in. And if we find that the results are promising, we don't straight away go around just to start implementing it, but because we need to make sure that the systems are robust. So in a sense, we need to harden those solutions, be it from the cyber perspective, privacy perspective, or even from safety. And also, our systems, our capabilities are interconnected. So we also need to make sure that these solutions that we wanted to put in place works well with the other existing systems that we have. So through Dimension X, which is an open innovation challenge program that we run at Hatch, so far we have launched about 70 innovation challenge and received close to more than 1,400 proposals globally. And out of all these things, I think for the past 2.5 years, we have been working with more than 70 startups on this, RPOC runs. And we're happy to say that for all this, their participation, to about 20 to 30% of them progress beyond the POC into the next phase of programs and implementation work within the home team. Thank you.
Great. So a couple things there, right? Incentives, creating incentive structures so that you can help propel innovation forward. So like the grants, making a sandbox that's viable for startups to really trial things, right? Startups are not financially stable always. They need your support to make it happen. So as a corporation or even in the government field, if you can enable such type of funding, it will help you streamline more results, right? Get to the fantastic numbers that HTX has of having 1,400 proposals submitted over the last, years is possible. And second piece would be really, sometimes it's not easy as an organization to do this structured as you are already. You have to think about how do you create positioning for your organization that might be different so that startups can be interested to work with you. So establishment of Hatch, which is very much part of HTX, but established separately in a way to allow for startups to collaborate more productively, perhaps bypassing procurement and governance related issues that are not so easy to overcome, especially for a government. So I think those two key points were very well highlighted by Eric, but just wanted to kind of like cement them again. If you're looking at innovation, these two things are very, very important. Now another question for you, James, right, related to establishing the foundation of trust, security, and governance. How does, as TPC is building a future-ready space or industry, how does the group actively identify, partner with, or invest in prop tech or smart city startups to deliver innovative features while managing the real-world risks of data governance and cybersecurity liability, right? These guys are usually quite small, and there's a lot of risk related to it. So how do you look at that space?
Yeah, so I think sourcing is very important. How we source, whether it's smart city, infrastructure, or the maritime side, we source it the same way. So the balance sheet for TPC is relatively stable. So what we're able to do is to invest in funds globally. These funds are our so-called satellite offices that allow us to source within the countries that they are familiar with, in the sectors that they are familiar with. So they deal source, they allow us to co-invest with them. The second thing that we like funds about is that they allow us to also be our DD providers in some sort of way. Because, for example, we had a startup that we invested in Boston. Obviously, sitting here in Singapore, it's very hard for us during COVID to go to the US, to check them out. We got one of our fund investments in New York to go down, do a bit of DD on them, check out the ecosystem, and actually, in the end, wrote a report to us, which was very useful. So we use the funds as the number one kind of conduit to help us deal source. The second is actually within our own infrastructure. We are quite well connected within the Asia Pacific space. People are starting to get to know TPC as a brand and as an organization and what we stand for. So we do get quite a fair bit of inbound from our networks and from the startups coming to us directly. Coming back to your question about security and also testing the kind of stability of the startups, what we usually do is, we put them through, like Eric said, POCs. We don't immediately put the startups and inculcate them. We actually created an innovation team within the organization. When I first started out at TPC, it was very painful to talk to the business units, talk to the startups, and trying to get them to, to implement solutions. It's like a chicken and a duck talking at the same time. They, our business unit operators were actually, especially in the maritime, a bit more senior. The startups were maybe in their 20s. So they're getting a 50-year-old guy talking to a 20-year-old guy. The 50-year-old guy will say, "This is like my son talking to me and telling me how to do things." So it was a very hard process. In the end, what we did was, after a lot of trial and error, we actually formed an innovation team. So the innovation team, it doesn't just comprise of a dedicated innovation person, but what we did is we actually brought the heads of the business units into the innovation team. So it's changing their mindset. For what they used to be, the business head of shipping, business head of real estate, business head of chemical tankers, etc. They are now double-heading. And when you double-head, that means they take responsibility. The moment they take responsibility, they have to do the job, and they are tracked. So that's a mindset shift for them. It worked out in many ways for us because we know we got a lot of deal flow. Now the innovation team speaks every week, on different kind of sourcing. They brainstorm, they see what works, what doesn't work. In addition to that, during the process, we kind of found out that, like what Patricia said, startups need money. The BUs don't want to pay any money because they are tracked according to their expenses, right? So what we did was we set up a $500,000 US innovation fund. The BU, the startup, the innovation team had to write in to apply for this. I think so far we've deployed about 3 or 4 of money into this different types of innovation. So we're trying to explore different ways. We like to think outside the box. and happy to engage with anyone here. Yeah.
Great. So many different topics that you cover there, from partnerships to de-risking your innovation strategy through, fund investments, creating innovation funds to deploy directly into startups, and also the value of creating a path, right, both internally and also externally for startups to innovate together and commercialize. So a few key nice topics there. So next section that I'd like to bring you guys through is related to bridging physical and digital infrastructure. This is really related to connectivity and urban planning. So first off, maybe going back to Eric again, technology for safety and security is both critical and costly. Beyond HTX's core network of industry partners, how can HTX use its partnership model to de-risk market entry for smaller, innovative startups with emerging tech for public safety and security in the region? Big mouthful, sorry, but how do you see the space, Eric?
Yes, so for startup operating in this region, it can feel like you're operating in a maze. Okay, just for the home team alone, we have 10 agencies, each of them doing things not exactly the same, although the mission is the same, but their roles and responsibility are quite different. So I can imagine that a startup, you got to go to each and every one of them to engage what is your issues, what is it. It's quite daunting in that sense. So basically for us in Hatch, we are here to help startup to navigate all this within the home team. So what we have done is that we have done all the hard work in engaging all the various home team departments to be able to so-called curate all the various challenges that they face and that we do, and then we throw it into an open innovation challenge. Each challenge statement comes with about $100,000 in money for them to work on the problem. So for that, for a start, if we are able to work with a startup and a solution comes forth, while it is probably working with one of the home team units, but at the same time, we will be looking at perhaps this solution can also benefit some of the other home team frontline units as well. So in doing so, it effectively helps to expand the market potential of the startup technology within the home team itself. And that helps to sort of avoid a lot of effort for them to go through the whole cycle all over again, to pitch, to talk to different users and all this part. So we help in Hatch, we do that. And secondly, we also open doors beyond a single buyer, for example, in the home team. So, and we do have an open so-called platform like the MTX, the Milipo TechX Summit, which is we have held it every biannually, and this offers technology or offer potentials or opportunities for startups to engage global public safety communities where they can actually generate interest in terms of the various buyers in that sense. So along the way when we are engaging startups, we saw many of them, while first started engaging one of our home team users unit, and subsequently they very quickly managed to secure or find potential users along other entities as well. So that actually helps them to create a lot of market potential in that sense. Yeah.
Fantastic. So maybe going to James, right? Resilient demands rapid technology adoption. How do requirements like security and ultra connectivity influence the urban planning process? Could you comment a little bit on that space?
Yes, so we do less infrastructure and city-wide developments. Our developments are usually very, so we do, hotels and logistic facilities, ports facilities. Lately, actually, we've just came across a startup based out of the US, which looks at weather, future planning of weather. So imagine a resort, right, by the sea coast, right? If global warming is already starting to happen, sea levels rise, what happens to a resort in 20, 30 years? You're building up infrastructure that is there for 20 to 30, 40, 50 years. Imagine a tsunami comes. So all these different potential risk factors, whether it's fire, earthquakes, tsunami, lack of snow for our ski resorts. There's actually the startup that we're talking to that is able to predict the risk level for that particular location, whether it's Japan or Singapore. So we do come across such different innovative solutions that allow us to look at real estate in a different way. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm just coming off to the third and last section. I see that we have 7 minutes left. So the same question goes to both of you. So the shift towards future ready often means significant societal change. How can leaders ensure that the smart city agenda remains inclusive, actively working to avoid creation of digital divide, ensuring the urban innovation benefits all segments of the population equally? How do you look at this? Maybe Eric first and then James.
So being future ready doesn't really necessarily means leaving people behind, right? So, well, in the home team, we are more fortunate because we have a large and diverse end user base, okay, within the various home team department. We have about 30,000 strong officers across different age, genders, and also perhaps different experience level, young and old. So in our effort in terms of driving innovation, we would generally, as much as we like, involve many of them, okay, so that they can actually contribute, share their experience, and so be able to share their perspective on what works, what is good, and perhaps what other areas that might have caused some issues later on. So for example, I take the example as the, in our airport immigration, we have the special assisted lane where ICA and HTX works very closely together to ensure that travelers can actually so-called clear their immigration self-check, self-service immigration along in groups. What it means is that for family now, you can actually go in with members young, old, some maybe even with special needs, maybe wheelchair bounded. And the fact is that they can actually go in together at the same channel to clear without the need to separate them and then go to different channels and all this. So all these are things that we are trying to do. And when we try to apply technology, we take all this into consideration so that actually by introducing all these things, we are actually trying to narrow this digital divide rather than widening it.
Thank you, Eric. And James?
Yeah, so I think being inclusive is more than just thinking about it. You got to act, you got to speak to the different stakeholders, because everyone has a different opinion on what inputs they have when it comes to infrastructure. So I sit on the board of a charity called SPD, serving people with disability. So we serve about 15,000 clients a year. When the government comes to build up new large infrastructure developments, for example, like the new airport, they do come to charities for inputs on how wheelchair accessibility is quite required. How the slope is, what's the gradient, at the locations of the different positions within the infrastructure. So I think engaging the community, engaging the people who are subject matter experts or within that specialized community is very important. So you build something that is inclusive for people to enjoy, especially when you're building something in the longer run.
Perfect. And just some closing thoughts here, right? We've heard a lot during this panel today. A few key things that I think are, iterated a few times and everyone should keep in mind. Collaboration with startups is key for speed. So how do you increase that speed? You can consider creating a good path for commercialization, whether it's through investment, improving your procurement mechanisms, providing sandbox funding, pilot opportunities, whether from your group or set up a team that's dedicated just for that, right? Make it so that someone's responsible for it and accountable. These are all really good messages that you should consider if you're a corporate looking to commercialize technology. And, when it comes to startups, it really takes a village. They are building something from scratch, and it's never been done before most of the time. So helping them find a way to make it successful, become a scale-up, and eventually exit, that should be everyone's job. So just a few of these closing thoughts for this panel, and I hope you enjoyed today's program. And for the last piece of this, would like to give a grand round of applause to the speakers here today. Thank you so much. All right.
Shall we grab a photo? And a round of applause for our speakers as well as for Pat for moderating the panel. All right, second last piece of content for this morning. Up next, we have our FinTech fireside chat. So basically, the topic of the discussion will be IFCs in the age of FinTech, AI, and digital assets. So can we invite Philip on, CEO of Emergo, as our speaker, as well as to moderate. We have Manav Narang, Head of Financial Services, APAC, for Plug and Play, as well as Head of India for us. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
Great. Thanks, everyone. So it's very interesting how I actually met Philip. I was at an event that Emergo was doing in Bangkok. After lunch, we were in the elevator, and he just asked me, okay, how do you find the event? And I said, you know what, I don't think I understand anything. And he said, yeah, I don't think I do either, and I'm doing the event. So from there, we started talking, and Philip was telling me he's always traveling, and I was just looking at his LinkedIn. 4 years in North America, then 15 years in Hong Kong, and you moved to Singapore this year. So the topic that we are discussing on today is how various financial centers globally are doing, are faring, how they're competing with each other for capital, for talent, for family offices, for almost everything. So before we start, Philip, how about you introduce yourself to the group as well?
Sure. First off, thank you very much for hosting an amazing event. I heard it's the 13th time. Yes. That's incredible. And obviously National Gallery for hosting as well. It's a great venue. My name is Philip. I'm the CEO of Emergo. We're actually one of the 3 founding entities of Cardano. So one of the OG chains, layer 1 chains in the Web3 space. I joined Emergo about a year ago. And we right now focus predominantly on financial services, real-world asset tokenization. And when I met Manav, we were at an RWA event. A lot of learning, a lot of opportunity to grow, and super excited to be here to talk more.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, for someone who doesn't know what IFCs are, IFCs, which is what we lovingly call international financial centers, are basically what Cayman, Luxembourg, and a few others set up back in the day. And today, almost every country who wants to be at the bleeding edge of innovation wants to do that, so that they can capture all of this exodus of billionaires, of money, of new startups that can help set up. A few of them you would know today. Singapore, of course, is one of the OG ones. There's Hong Kong, New York, but then there is Dubai and Abu Dhabi trying to do it just next door. We have India with Gift City. We are doing that. So we just set up an office there to help them advance in the rankings as well. And all of them are competing, but with different agendas in mind. And we wanted to discuss that topic with a few things like with the emergence of blockchain, digital assets, AI, how these centers are faring, and how do we think they are going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years. So the first question is around the role of fintech in tokenization that helps define or redefine the concept of a financial center.
I think when you think of a financial center in the past, it's been really about proximity to capital, and as we've heard today, a proximity to infrastructure, ports, real world stuff. And I think how it's evolving now, it's more proximity to talent and technology, because that's kind of replacing, traditional infrastructure. I'll come back to how I think that's going to come around and be quite circular, but I think it's one of the reasons why you're seeing new international financial centers kind of emerge and try to compete, because when it's more about proximity to regulation, technology, talent, then it kind of evens the playing field. You can be anywhere.
And when Singapore and Hong Kong were coming up with their centers, and we call them gateway to Asia when it comes to anything to do with money. And the reason we innovate, the reason Plug and Play exists today is because you cannot stop. Even if you're at in the first position, you cannot not think about doing more innovating, because disruption is everywhere. So now talking about disruption with IFCs, do you think Hong Kong, Singapore, they're always gonna win, or the new ones like the Abu Dhabi Global Markets, DIFC, Gift City, or do you think they have a chance to, try to take the cake?
I think if you take a step back, regulators play a pretty big role in the creation or establishment or continuity of financial centers. These regulators generally have 3 or 4 things that are consistent, no matter what country, what jurisdiction, wherever they operate. So number 1, they need to create orderly and transparent markets, right? Number 2, they have to have some degree of investor protection, right? Number 3, they need some focus on ongoing development and innovation to attract more capital. And then lastly, there's enforcement. This is pretty much the same for each and every one of them, right? So how do they actually compete? How do they actually differentiate themselves from, Hong Kong versus Singapore, Singapore versus Abu Dhabi versus New York, et cetera, et cetera. The reality in my experience, having worked in actually New York and London and Hong Kong and Singapore and actually Abu Dhabi, each one kind of has to take a view on, are they going to regulate through enforcement or regulate through security, regulate through legislation? There's different postures they can take. And I think you see administrations like the US right now pivot from regulation through enforcement to regulation through legislation. And you see how fast they're cycling now, how much capital they're attracting back to the US around blockchain and AI. You see Hong Kong and Singapore, really succeed because they're incredibly trusted and there's rule of law and there's some degree of consistency, right? There isn't as much focus on administrative change. So I think each IFC kind of has to figure out what is their strength. I think Singapore, it's continuity, it's governance, it's trust, it's the absolute lack of corruption. It is a great place to build. You think of the US, it's just the velocity is there right now. But can you count on it in the next administration? Question mark. And so my take is, as an emerging company or as a startup, you want to pick a jurisdiction that fits what your ethos is. If you're looking for consistency and long term, well, Singapore is a wonderful place. If you're looking to accelerate with as little friction as possible, I would probably be in Dubai or Abu Dhabi right now, right? And if you're looking for the maximum amount of capital, well, then you've got to be in the US.
And talking about, enforcement, regulation through enforcement, that I would say places where we are right now at Gift City in India. So I don't know how many of you know about it, but it's a special economic zone. You cannot transact in the Indian currency. It's 15 foreign currencies. There's no tax. And they've majorly created it to get all of the Indian companies' business outside India to get accumulated there. So you're operating like operating in Singapore or Japan or the US, but at an Indian cost base. And almost every Indian bank, every Indian insurer, every aircraft leaser, shipping, manufacturing company, everyone's set up there because they get those benefits. But if you go talk to them and ask, do you actually find values? They're like, no, the government asked us to move there. But I think that's how you usually have to start as well, right? Else, how do you get the first person to move there?
I think we touched on this right before we came in. It's the pillar that people don't think as much about, even though it's core to everything that we do. The attraction of talent is actually the #1 thing, right? If you don't have the right people, if you can't attract the right people, if you can't convince me and my wife to move here, well, it just doesn't work, right? I'll stay somewhere else or say where I can raise a family that I feel comfortable, safe, can afford rent, et cetera, right? And so when you look at a place that's like San Francisco, Silicon Valley, it is absolutely without a doubt the hotbed for AI. Everyone knows this in the world. Everyone is willing to acknowledge that they have the lead. But it's bloody expensive to live there. It's bloody expensive to attract talent there. And why can they continue to have this advantage? Well, in a sense, there is a bit of a critical mass that exists there. But it's also that it has a natural advantage. People love living in California. It's a wonderful place at the end of the day, right? And so if you have a choice of living in California or Dubai, question mark, right? Or Hong Kong, if you're a developer that's kind of started their career in the US. But if you're coming out of IIT, you're happy to go to Gift City, right? So talent attraction is something that is almost structural, right? So these IFCs really need to understand how do they overcome some of the structural deficiencies they have. And that could be through tax, that could be through incentives, could be schooling, could be a whole bunch of other things that are actually completely adjacent to the building of a business. And you look at a place like Singapore and it's why it's successful. It's incredibly safe, there's good schooling, infrastructure's there, rule of law, we're a global hub for so many different things and you can attract so much talent. Like when I was at McKinsey, the #1 place for people who could only speak English to move was Singapore. Everyone wanted to come here because taxes were good and all the other things I shared. It was much harder to go to Shanghai, much harder to go to Hong Kong if you wanted to come out to Asia.
Yeah. So we talk about regulations and policy. We talked about talent. Now let's talk about adoption, because you can maybe force someone to move there once, but if they can't survive there, if there is no job satisfaction, or if there's no adoption there, you will move back. Yeah. And we know this, that retaining a customer is maybe 5 times more valuable and precious than acquiring a new one. So talking about adoption, and specifically on the RWA side of things, what is helping in various IFCs? Mainstream adoption of tokenized real-world assets.
Yeah, it's actually really straightforward. Regulation and regulatory clarity is a competitive advantage. So if I'm a builder and I know if I'm building within a framework that the regulator has clearly articulated to the best of their ability, right? Because it's never going to be perfect. I'm much more confident in investing, not just dollars and cents and infrastructure and people, but just committing through the ups and downs of a normal startup to kind of finding that product market fit. And so when you have that, you can build the right products that your clients feel confident buying or investing in. So if you're doing stable coins, which is obviously the first product market fit for real world asset tokenization, there's 300 billion in stable coins. It's largely been adopted, right? And why do people have confidence? Because there's soon to be more clarity around like the Clarity Act and things of that nature, MiCA in Europe, where I have confidence to put in hundreds of millions of dollars to buy this stuff, right? Or billions, in fact. It's 300 billion of it. To do the next layer of, let's say, treasuries, which is already happening, carbon credits, et cetera, where those pools of capital will be created and be attracted into are going to be the regulatory environments that provide that clarity, that give me confidence as an investor to write a 9-figure check, right? Or deploy $1 billion. Like, think about it. There is no CEO in this room who could go to his board and say, I'm going to put 10 million, let alone 100 million, unless there's regulatory clarity, right? And so that's the starting point.
Yeah. And then even if you have adoption because of regulatory clarity, you cannot just operate within that small center, right?
Correct.
So interoperability is also very important. Can you talk a bit about that across
Correct.
IFCs?
Yeah, and I think this is what you're seeing. You're seeing the most forward-thinking IFCs like really build those relationships with other IFCs, right? They are having trade mission after trade mission to go to Abu Dhabi and build bridges and to talk about what allows us to be interoperable, what allows us to be composable, how do we have a common set of rules, common set of understandings that allow us to trade. Again, no different from TradFi today, right? We're seeing into the tariff wars. You need to have rules of engagement between our country and your country, our market and your market, our product and this market. And so the most forward-thinking kind of regulators, you see them traveling all the time to talk to their counterparts to establish these rules of engagement.
Yeah, this actually was a surprise for me as well. One of the regulators we spoke to, they said, we have a sandbox with 4 different regulators. So if we are testing something, we put it in that sandbox so they get to try it, and we get feedback from them as well, because us liking it might not mean anything unless the interoperability tick mark is there.
Correct.
And then let's fast forward 10 years. By 2035, do you think anything will change in these factors that you talked about, the talent, the regulations? Will these still matter and make or break it for these IFCs in the next 10 years?
I think the more things change, they stay the same, right? Like I really do believe this. The commonality that will allow us to move to the next phase of kind of commerce, the infrastructure and the pipes will in all likelihood be blockchain or some equivalent of blockchain. It is just a better way of doing a ledger. It's accounting, right? It's the same stuff except it's on an immutable chain. So I think that will be the pipes. I think AI will certainly play a massive role in efficiency and analysis of petabytes of data. That's going to be implemented. I think the next thing that we've been actually talking about all day is the core infrastructure, like real world assets, like ports, trains, ships. You're still going to have to move goods from one place to another, right? It could be settled in digital currency, but the actual physical goods are going to go from here to there. And so my gut feel is it's actually going to come full circle. I think places like Singapore, places like Hong Kong, places like the New Yorks and the Londons, they will retain this structural advantage, right? And it's going to be incredibly hard for new entrants to really displace them. So they're better off forming partnerships, right? Forming alliances, relationships, much like we do today, but both on the real world side and on the digital side. And I think the most forward-thinking IFCs are doing that. Case in point, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, DFIC, ADGM, they understand this is a future that they need to play a part in. And they are taking a risk posture that I think is obviously higher than some of the other jurisdictions, in part because they don't have the legacy infrastructure that a Hong Kong might have, or a Singapore might have, or certainly a New York or London definitely have. So they're able to move a little bit faster, take a little bit more risk, and the decision making is much more centralized, right? And so that's their advantage, and that's why you're seeing a massive amount of talent and companies move to those jurisdictions, and you're seeing a lot of innovation happening there. It doesn't mean the incumbents will disappear. I think they will just need to play with a few extra players.
Yeah. And then one of the partners we have is EDB, which is trying to make sure they stay relevant. They do a lot more. A lot of these governments are giving innovation grants because they know that just attracting startups will not make it or break it. They need corporates, they need investors, they need talent. So it has to basically be the entire puzzle, which will, of course, take time to get in place, but they need all the elements to be in there.
Yeah, the catchphrase that we all have heard probably too many times is you have to create the right ecosystem, right? Or ostensibly the right neighborhood. If you put it in layman's terms, why do we always want to live in certain neighborhoods? It's like, well, there's a school there. The grocery store is really good. There's a bakery that makes, great bread. There's a good coffee shop that I can have coffee on Sunday. And there's a sports ground and there's a dog park. That's why I live there, right? And that's why the property values go up. And that's why, it's an attractive place to be. So similarly for IFCs, they're really trying to create the right ecosystem, the right set of components that create the magic, right? This is why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley. It just has this right set of components that attracts the right talent, has the right laws that allow for talent to move more easily. It has enough people, et cetera, right? And that's what I think IFCs need to try to find that magic mix. And if they can, they will become much more prominent.
If you were advising a government today to set up an IFC, what's the first thing you would ask them to focus on?
Thank you for giving me that question. I'm sure there may be some regulators here. I will come back, and what you'll find for me is I typically try to keep things quite simple. The number one thing for startups and innovation is technology always outpaces legislation, right? Tech is always first. We just can't be scared if we do something, you're going to throw us in jail. Right? Like that is the thing that scares the crap out of every entrepreneur in the Web3 space, right? Because we're doing DeFi, we're doing new products, right? And so for us, we always want to have an open dialogue with the regulator, with the government to say, look, we're fully doxed. I'm here. I'm registered, right? My company is registered. This is what we're working on. How does this fit into your current structure, right? How does this fit into your current framework? How can we play in a sandbox where we can try and sometimes fail, right? Always managing those four things, right? Transparency, orderly markets, protection of investors, market development, and enforcement, right? As long as we play within those four pillars, legitimately, I think most governments would welcome that. And that's the advice I'd want to give them.
Okay. So this is more of a lighthearted question. You lived in Hong Kong, you lived in Singapore. Which city is better?
Well, it's quite obvious, right? In all seriousness, I would say, and this is not just to play to the room, because have many friends in Hong Kong, but I love Singapore. It is amazing, right? People often will tell me, but how do you like the same weather every day? I love it, you know? So for me, Singapore is phenomenal for me at this time. Really, really grateful to be here.
Perfect. So that's it for our chat. Philip, thank you so much for your time. A big round of applause for all these insights. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Philip and Manav. And I think whatever they were talking about is actually a good segue into our next topic, because everything revolves around the world, and we survive and do business by being interconnected, right? So for our last panel for the morning, we have 3 of our foreign guests coming in to speak about scaling tech, talent, and trade across borders, especially in Southeast Asia. All right, so can we invite our speakers onto stage? First, we have Ahmad Salman, Head of Startup and Digitalization, Selangor Information Technology Digital Economic Corporation. Second speaker, Dr. Giorgio Calveri, Italian Trade Commissioner, Italian Trade Agency of Singapore. Third and final speaker, Sam Sestere, Director General of ICT, Ministry of Post and Telecommunications, Cambodia. And to moderate the panel, we have Jojo, our co-founder of Plug and Play. All right, can we give them a round of applause? And while they're getting comfortable, I know we also have a lot of foreign public sector guests. So I believe we have legislators even from Nigeria, city governments from Kyoto, Taoyuan City, and a few others here today. So I'm sure you guys will be very interested at what our speakers have for today. All right, Jojo, are you ready?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne, and good job to the other panelists. I'm kind of scared with this seat. Let me see, I'll make sure that I don't. Maybe I just stand. I don't know. Okay. Thank you very much for staying on. Before we start, can we have a quick round of introductions with the speakers and what you do and the firms that you represent?
I'll go first. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Salman. I am from Selangor, Malaysia. Can I know how many of you never been to Malaysia? No? So everyone has been in Malaysia, right? So yeah, so we are in the center of Malaysia, Selangor. Our state, we contributed, I think, about 26% of GDP to national GDP, which is, one of the most prosperous state in Malaysia. And so what we do is we are, we sit in between, the government and the private sector. So we kind of in the middle. So sometimes we represent the government, sometimes we also represent the private sector. So we are the ecosystem builder in Malaysia, so covering, the SMEs ecosystem, the startup ecosystem. Yeah, so yeah, that's basically what our role in Malaysia.
Thank you, Salman. Giorgio, I love your name, by the way.
When I like yours too.
Yeah, when I lived in Italy, everybody called me Giorgio, and it made me look sexy.
Yes, when we met first time, I got a bit confused between Giorgio and Giorgio. So I didn't know. Good. No, I'm Giorgio Calveri, the director of the Italian Trade Agency office here in Singapore. The Italian Trade Agency is the agency of the government entrusted with the internationalization of Italian companies. So basically, we help the Italian companies that want to have business abroad through promotional activities, events, and direct assistance to the company, fostering a relation with local companies and institutions, providing information, all this kind of activity. Startup and innovation is one of our main main topics here in Singapore, and I want to thank Plug and Play, with which we are having this very interesting program now for a group of Italian startup. Okay.
Thank you, Giorgio. Sam?
Thank you very much, Giorgio. So first of all, thank you for inviting me as a panelist for this Plug and Play Summit, Asia Pacific Summit. So my name is Setsere Sam. You can call me Sam. I'm from Cambodia. I'm the Director General of the General Department of ICT of the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication. That my General Department is in charge of promoting the ICT industry in the country, also provides the digital infrastructure, and also provide support for the digital startup in the country, and also cybersecurity and data center, national data centers as well. Thank you very much, and nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Sam. I'm a big fan of strategy. Earlier in the last panel, we heard about financial services, financial industry. When we first came into Singapore, it was that particular industry or vertical that we focused on, because we felt that Singapore was very strong in that. You know, financial services as an industry is I think, if I'm not mistaken, about a $35 trillion industry. Okay. So I want to focus on strategies in your particular countries. You know, why are you doing what you are doing? Okay. And part of those is, of course, as we have here in our topic, scaling the technology, okay, talent, and trade across borders. I'll start off with you, Saman. Let's focus on Malaysia's strategies in scaling technology in specific industry verticals vis-a-vis the global market. When we spoke a couple of days, yesterday, and also when we had that Zoom call, you said that you shared with me that in terms of industries that Malaysia wants to be strong at least here in the region, it's on semiconductors and health. Can you elaborate on that, please, and what you guys are doing in order for you to be the main hub in terms of semiconductors and health technologies, at least here in the region?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jojo. I think because of time constraint, probably let's just focus on one, probably semiconductor.
Okay.
Because our role is, we are building the ecosystem. So building ecosystem is a strategic approach of a government because it'll take time. If you look at Silicon Valley, building a community, so it'll take time, probably 50 or even 60 years. So if you look at Malaysia, so we have an advantage where our semiconductor ecosystem has been there for probably at least 30-40 years in Penang, in different part of Malaysia, Penang, Johor, and some of in Selangor and also Negeri Sembilan. So now, how do you move from the back end to the front end? So that's another different ecosystem, even though you are in one industry. But front end and back end is different ecosystem, and this industry itself is a capital intense industry. You need a lot of investment, not just from the private sector, venture capital, but also from the government. Yeah. So when we look into this specific sector, semiconductor, so being in Selangor, being in the center, and we look at what are the resources that we have. Now we have our talent. We have piece of land that we can build this with the emerging digital usage or technology, and these chips or semiconductor industry are powering the future. So then we decide, okay, if we were to do this, who are our key partners? Then we look into the regional players. Yeah, we have Taiwan, we have Singapore. Okay, let's talk to them. Let's see, how do we work together in this? Obviously, these are something that we can't do it alone. We need a lot of, collaboration between, countries, ASEAN countries. So yeah, that's how we look into this semiconductor ecosystem. Am I answering you?
Yes, that's great. Can you share with us what you guys are doing specifically with Taiwan? Because I remember having a conversation about a year ago with your Minister of Science and Technology, and I was telling we were kind of talking about Taiwan, you know, and because of the current, especially now with the current geopolitical situation that Taiwan is facing, we think and we both felt that, you know, a lot of these companies and operations would be moving outside of Taiwan. You know, pretty much what happened in China about, you know, a couple of years ago, moving some of that operations into Vietnam. Remember? And Vietnam just said, you know, we're exactly like China, just a different place. Okay, and same thing with Malaysia, you know, and we were talking about copying whatever, you know, fiscal or pricing structure that Taiwan has, and then just copying it in Malaysia. So it's a seamless move, you know, for these companies to move their operations to Malaysia. I mean, can you share any specific programs that you have copying Taiwan for that purpose?
So adding on to, I mean, what I just mentioned. So basically, like, you know, I will not touch into like a geopolitics kind of thing, because I think Malaysia itself, we are a very small country, just 32 million. So we have to, you know, play to our advantage, which is, you know, in our diplomacy and how do we, I mean, because we are technically a neutral, you know, we don't, you know, it's 50-50, because, you know, there's two giants, so how do we play, how do we do this, you know? And, you know, that's the advantage that we have with our, you know, multicultural people in Malaysia. We have, you know, Malaysian speaking Chinese, and we have Malaysian speaking Indian, we have the Malays itself. So that's, I think, we play to our advantage to, you know, to host them, to work together with them. And because our position is always like, okay, we are neutral, we are doing business with you, and we are doing business with you guys as well. Yeah, and for you know, for Taiwanese, I mean, Malaysia is, I think, one of you know, a country that very close with Taiwan in terms of technology transfer, and a lot of you know, components are even the IC engineers. Because when we kickstart our business, I mean, like the semicon industry, so we don't really have like a expert. You know, we do have, but they're all Malaysian working in Taiwan. Right. So we have one brand like Phison. So they are Malaysian, you know, business, but based in Taiwan. So now after 50 years or maybe 40 years, so they want to contribute back to the country. I mean, because that's the specific spot that you have for your country. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Let's move on to now scaling talent. You know, Sam, I remember also having a conversation with Minister Chea of MPTC, and he was asking me, you know, what I thought about, you know, what to focus on in Cambodia. You know, with especially when you have the digital economy society framework, right? And I told him, you know, if I were you guys, I'd really focus on talent. You know, I mean, like India, we saw that very much in India, you know, over the last 20 years. And until now, they still produce 200,000 engineers per year that they share to the world, essentially, right? So for India, for Cambodia, as I said, the Digital Economy and Society Policy Framework that you have until 2035, which covers connectivity, government, digitalization, startup ecosystem building, okay, you know, in terms of the human capital building, you know, like, can you share with us, like, for example, let's start off with some statistics, you know, how many engineers that you produce per year today, you know, how do you see that increasing in 5 or 10 years time, you know, and in terms of startups, how many do you produce per year today, and then again, how many do you see that how many do you see that increasing, you know, to a number in 5 or 10 years time?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, as you mentioned, actually, digital human talent, digital talent is very crucial for the development of our digital economy and society framework. Policy Framework 2021-2035. So the Ministry of Power and Telecommunication give priority to the digital talent development. So at first we start to understand the ground, and we observe that we have a shortage of advanced skill, digital skill. That's why we have our digital skill development roadmap 2024-2035. So this digital skill development roadmap allow us to do the projection. So we have defined the 7 skill track for the digital sector. So including cybersecurity, including AI data science, including cloud blockchain, and also digital business as well. And after that, we give the guideline to the university. We have 6 university partners. Give guideline to university that each you have bachelor degree or master degree of this 7 track, you need to have at least some curriculum, in their curriculum, at least some topics, skill topic based on each tracks. So we set the minimum. And also in the digital skill development roadmap, we have the projection. By 2035, we need to have at least 100,000 of digital skill talent. Meaning that at least...
What is the population of Cambodia now?
17 million.
So 100,000 out of 17 million?
Yeah, for digital skill. So currently, only 10% of the students that graduate from high school choose the bachelor degree in ICT related. But we want to increase this from 10% within the next 5 years to 20%. Double. Yeah, double. And then to 25% by 2037. So that, because we think it's critical for the ICT skill. To do so, the ministry also has allocate some fund to provide the scholarship. Every year, we provide 500 outstanding scholarship to the student. So the student need to have the grade A, B, and C in order to apply this scholarship, and very difficult competition to get those scholarship. Because we believe that with these outstanding student, that we can have a good digital talent later on for the advanced skill. Besides that, we cooperate with other countries like France, like Korea, China, and India, and send out our outstanding student for master and PhD. So every year we
Why
send...
not to the US?
We are working.
We'll do it also, no?
We also doing it. Okay. So, and we make a contract. They need to turn back. So we provide scholarship, but they need to turn back and serve the country for some period of the time before they can do other things. So they need to come back and provide the competency to develop the country, something like this. And also, for the we also provide a kind of financial aid to the student who want to study ICT skill. So they can get the funding to support their study without interest. So after they finish, they go for job and they get the job and they pay back just only the amount that they get the support.
Sam,
like this.
I hate to put you in this position, but if you were to put like a ballpark figure of how much the government of Cambodia is budgeting for talent development, what number would you say? Like, is it like $500 million a year or less or a billion? I don't. If you were to put a number, how much would you say?
So I don't have the exact number, but I can tell you that the government of Cambodia give the first priority to human development, to education. Yeah. So right now, there are many priority agenda, but education is the first agenda of the government. So they inject a lot of budget to that sector, education. So, and for digital skill, yeah, we do allocate some funding by by the ministry, some million, I can say maybe more than 10 million for that scholarship and financial aid on this. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sam. Let's move to Giorgio. Okay. I'd like to focus on now scaling trade across borders. Okay. What is, from your point of view, from a European, not just Italy, okay, what is it in the ASEAN region that attracts Italian or European businesses? Presently, what do you think is the trade between ASEAN nations and Italy? And how much would you like that to be increased?
Yeah, the Italian economy is very export-oriented, as you know. We export 626 billion euros last year. At the moment, the sixth global exporter. So for us, of course, trade.
It's in your DNA.
Yes, it's very important, and it's the main focus also of my agency. Another particularity of Italian economy is that it is very diversified. Everybody knows Italian excellence in the so-called 3F, like fashion, food, furniture, but actually our most important item, the most important item of Italian exports is machinery. We are the fifth machinery exporter in the world. Last year, the Italian machinery exports were worth 100 billion euros. And also in this area, machinery is the sector where I see the most important prospects of growth. ASEAN is getting more important. There is growing interest from the Italian companies, maybe also because of the international developments, but I can tell you that there are many companies that have contacted us. Also, our government is investing in this region. We have one office in each the main ASEAN countries. Hopefully, I'm sorry, just at the moment, Philippines is missing, but I'm working to open an office.
We have a government
people
there from the Philippines here, so let's do more business together. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that yes, machinery in general is one of the sectors where there are good opportunities of trade, but also also aerospace is a sector where we are working a lot. In general, a third characteristic of Italian economy is to have many clusters. We don't have that many big companies. We have a few, but we have many clusters that working together, cooperating together, acquire a strength in innovation and also in external projection. And we have a few in aerospace that now are very active.
I have a personal request. We'll have smart Gucci's maybe in the future coming from Italy.
We can work on it.
Okay, as we wrap up, maybe I think I'd just like to get your perspective, no? Why do you think it's very important for government intervention in creating a strong startup ecosystem in your country? Maybe I can start off with you, Saman.
Yeah, I think obviously government, they're building the foundation. So without government intervention, or because for private sector, they are looking at government as someone that leads the way. if the government are focusing on semiconductors, then you can see a lot of, the supply chain around ecosystem, starting to look for business, it'll become prosper. So I think government intervention, especially because in Malaysia we have federal government, we have state government. So on the federal government, they are the one who focus on policy making, looking into a strategic approach. But for the state itself, we have to look at our resources. What do we have here? How do we take advantage of the federal government policy, and how do we, because at the end of the day, we are accountable to the state itself. So, and I would not say like we are competing within other states, but because we have to operate like a private sector, yeah. So.
Thank you. Sam?
Okay, so I think it absolutely true, because we can see the best practice of developed country like Singapore, like Taiwan, like US, like even Korea. Korea had the Ministry of SME and Startup. So they commit to promote the startup. The government back the startup. So I think, and the startup ecosystem develop very fast. So it proved that government intervention is absolutely important to develop the startup ecosystem in country. Not different from other country. Cambodia also, where we are the developing country, where we have little number of large industry or even corporate. So the government need to play important role in order to intervene, contribute, support the startup ecosystem. Yeah, I strongly support on this.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Giorgio?
Yeah, Giorgio, I think in general, after we lived 20, 30 years where the intervention of the state was regarded for the economic system like an absolute evil, now after, maybe also because of the crisis we developed in the first part of the years 2000, many governments and also many economists started to evaluate the importance of the state intervention in the economy in general. We have many examples in the past of economies that developed thanks also to the intervention by the state. We can quote the United States with the computer, the Japan with automotive, electronics, many also. The government of Singapore invested a lot in innovation and other sector. So I think that there are two aspects. One is that the government is important to create the conditions. I mean, the infrastructure, the physical, yes, and the electronic infrastructure. I mean, this is very important. The financial regulation. So to create an environment where the companies and particularly the startup can thrive. And I think that we also, as I was saying before, we don't have to dismiss also in some way a direct intervention of the the government in some sectors that can bring fruits to the entire economy, to the entire economy. So I think that the alliance public and between public and private and enterprise is the key to success for an economy and for a country.
Thank you so much. With that, we end, and hopefully this panel was helpful to our government audience here today. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you to all our panelists as well as Jojo. I can see a lot of you in the audience wanting to start talking to them already, but please hold your seats at this point. All right, let's give them a photo op right now. All right, can we give them a round of applause once again? So we have now come to the end of the morning segment, which is all the content,